Hi everyone, Ravi this side. Welcome to Engineering Adda. So, in the previous video, or you can say there is a video on my channel where I have discussed how you can deploy your Spring Boot application on the Kubernetes cluster. But there we ran some couple of command how we can create the deployment object, service object, and then try to deploy our Spring Boot application on the Kubernetes cluster. But here we are not going to run the commands. We are going to create a YAML file. There we'll try to describe all the things, and then we'll try to create the deployment object and the service object. Okay, so this is how we generally use in our software industry in the production environments. So let's get started for that, and let me try to go to the IntelliJ and create one Spring Boot application. So go to the file and new project, and here let me try to create Spring Boot K8s demo using YAML. Okay, and this is the Maven project. Now let me go to the next, and here we are not going to integrate our database, so we are going to simply create a Spring Boot application and expose one get API how we did previously or in the first video. Okay, so just I'm going to select the Spring Web. In the coming video, I will cover how you can deploy your database as well as the application and connect them in the Kubernetes. So those things I will cover later on in upcoming videos. So yeah, we have created this application. Let me go inside this. Okay, so I think it is loading. That is why it is not opening in the Maven format. Let me try to reload this. Go to this, reload from disk. Just wait for few seconds. If it is not working, I will close it and then open it again. So go to file, where it is, go to the recent project, and this is the project that we have created, is Spring Boot K8s demo using YML. Open in a new tab. Just wait for few seconds. You can see here it is coming up, load Maven project. So just click on that. It will take few seconds to download all the dependency that we have included, and then it will make our application up. So just wait for that. Till then, what I suggest you to do is, let me open the Docker desktop and let it make up, and then we need to configure our Docker desktop. We need to start our Kubernetes cluster or Minikube, you can say. So those things I need to start, and then we'll try to do the development. Okay, so meanwhile I'm just starting the Docker desktop. So I think, yeah, this project is configured. Let me try to open the main class, and here let me try to annotate this class with the REST controller so that we can expose some API here. Let me try to create one git mapping, and let's say hello, and the text we are going to use is, let me try to create one method which is returning some string, and let's say it's hello all, something like that. Let it return welcome to Engineering Adda. Okay, and just save it. Now let me try to make this application up. So run this application, and we have not configured anything, so this will be up on the port number 8080, which is the default port for the Spring Boot. Okay, and here you can see our Docker desktop is also up. So yeah, the application is up on the port number 8080. Let me go to the browser and hit the endpoint locally. So localhost 8080, and the API is hello. So you can see we are able to see this message, welcome to Engineering Adda. Okay, now let me go to the browser, and we are good. Go to the Docker, we are good. What Other things we need to do, we need to start our Minikube on the Docker, and then we need to create the Docker image of our application, and then we'll deploy that. So for that, let me try to first of all set the Minikube or start the Minikube on the Docker desktop. I can directly go, like I'm using the Docker desktop. You can see earlier I started the Minikube. So I have the container for the Minikube. I can directly start from here, but I will try to show you how you can start if you're doing for the first time. So let me open a command prompt here, and there we need to run some commands. So let me try to search for the Minikube status first of all and show you what is the status of it. So you can see Minikube is stopped. Meanwhile, if you don't have the Minikube, you can download it, and you have to download the kubectl. So let me try to show you those things as well. So what I did, I will be like making the video how you can configure your Minikube, how you can download your minikube.exe file, kubectl.exe file, and how you can set your environment variables so that you can start those things and you can use it. So I will make a video on that. So just go to the desktop. Let me go there. Here you can see I have created this folder, and inside that I put this to.exe file, and I set the path of this to the environment variable. Okay. So that you need to do. So our Minikube status is stopped. Okay. Now what I need to do, I need to start the Minikube on the Docker. Okay. So for that we need to run the command Minikube start driver equal to Docker. Okay. Just hit enter, and let me try to show you. Here you can see it is not started, but once the command is complete, you can see it has become it is started and it's running now. Okay. So just wait for a few seconds, let it completely start, and then we can do some other things. Okay, we'll check the status after that and then show you what is the status. So just wait for a few seconds. Okay, let me stop this application. Let me go to the Docker command prompt. You can see, yeah, just wait for a few seconds. Yeah, you can see our Minikube is started, and kubectl is now configured to use Minikube cluster and default. Okay, so let me try to check for the Minikube status and then see what is the status of the Minikube. So you can see it is running now. Earlier it was stopped, now it is running. Okay, so we are good now. So let me try to, what we need to do next, we need to use the Docker inside the Minikube cluster as well. So how we can configure that things? So we need to run a command for that so that we can use Docker inside the Minikube cluster. So there is a command for that, which is Minikube Docker environment. So let me run this Minikube Docker minus env. Okay, just hit enter and copy this piece of code and just come here and paste it. Let me try to remove this space and just enter it. So now we have configured Minikube in such a way that we can run Docker inside the Minikube cluster. So let me try to run the command docker images to show you what all the images we have inside the Minikube cluster. So you can see we have this images inside the Minikube cluster. Okay. Now let me try to, we are good now with the standpoint of the Minikube. Minikube is started. Minikube is configured such a way that we can use Docker inside Minikube. Okay. Now what we need to do, we need to create the Docker image of our application. So for that, let me try to go to the IntelliJ and let me try to create the Docker file first of all. So just right click on it and go to the new file and try to remember that whenever you're going to create the Docker file, then the name of the file should be Docker file and D should be capital. Okay. So, and everything should be small. So just add this. Now let me try to configure the Docker file. So we are going to use the JDK 17 for our Docker image to run in the cluster. So for that we need to include the JDK 17. So from open JDK, if you don't know how we can create the Docker image, how we can create the Docker, how we can create the Docker file, Docker image, and how we can push to the Docker hub, then I already have covered those things. There are videos on my channel, you can watch it out. So let's say I'm going to use 17 and we need to expose this application on the port number 8080, and let's say we are going to add the jar file or the target folder. So target slash jar file name, let's say the jar file name should be Spring Boot. What is the name of our application? Is Spring Boot K8s demo using YAML, something like that. Spring Boot K8s demo using YAML. You can choose any name. Okay, I'm going to use this dot jar. Let me try to copy this whole thing and paste it here. Now what we need to do, we need to add the entry point and it should be Java minus jar, and then we need to provide the, let me try to put it comma here, and then we need to provide the jar file name with the forward slash. Okay, so just copy this whole thing, come here and paste it here. Now another thing what we need to do, we need to include the final name here in the pom.xml in the build. Okay, so that we can generate our jar file with the final name. So let me try to go to the Docker file and copy this jar file name. So we are going to generate the jar file with the name called Spring Boot K8s demo using YAML. Okay, now come here to the pom.xml, in the final name just put it, and then we need to do the Maven clean install. So for that you can either go to the Maven and open this application, go to the life cycle, select clean install and then run it. So it will generate the jar file inside the target folder. Okay, so just wait for that and let me close this. So once our jar file is created, we have the Docker file ready. What we'll do, we'll try to go to the command prompt and go to the particular location and then create the Docker image. Okay, so wait for that. Okay, so build success, you can go to the target and you can see this is the jar file that we have created. Now come to the command prompt and we need to go to the particular location where our Docker file is. So for this project, what is the location? Let me go there. So you can see it is inside YouTube, Engineering Adda project March, and then the project name. Okay, and the Docker file is there inside that. So let me try to go there. So let me come here, come here. We have project March, and then we have this project. Okay, just copy the path. You can see we have the Docker file here, and come here to the command prompt cd, and then so you are inside the particular project where our Docker file is. Now we need to run the command, which is docker build minus t and then the name of your Docker file. So let's say I'm going to give the name to the Docker file as Spring Boot K8s demo using YAML. Okay, Spring Boot demo or something like Spring Boot K8s demo using YAML. Okay, and then you need to provide the version of your application or version of your image. So let's say our version is 1.0, and then you need to provide the root directory. Just enter it. So it will take few seconds and it will create the Docker image for us. So here you can see earlier I ran the command docker images and you can see this much image or this many image we have. Now let me try to run the docker images command again to show you the newly created image. So you can see this is the image that we have created now. You can see 15 seconds ago. So we are good now. So what we did, we created our Spring Boot application. Okay. And we open the Docker desktop and Docker desktop is up. Then we try to make our Minikube up on the Docker desktop. We configured the Minikube in such a way that we can use or we can run the Docker commands. And then we created the Docker file. And then what we did, uh, we created the Docker image. Okay. So we are good now. Now what we need to do, either we can use couple of commands to create the Kubernetes deployment object, service object, and deploy our application. Or what we can do, we can use the YML file, which is the industry standard to deploy our Spring Boot application. So for that, we need to have the YML file, or you can keep two YML file, one for the deployment object, one for the service object, and then deploy your Spring Boot application using that. So let me try to go to the browser, and here you can search for the Kubernetes deployment object YML. Search for that and go to the Kubernetes site and come down. Here you can see they have provided you the YML configuration for the deployment. Okay, so using that, what I did, I already have created the YML for our application. So let me try to go there. You can see this, right? So let me try to create the YML first of all, and then we'll try to explain you each of the things. Okay, so let me try to copy this whole thing and come to the IntelliJ, create one deployment YML dot YML, add this, paste it here, and here you can see this is the version of your deployment object. What is the kind? The kind should be either deployment service, whatever kind you are going to mention, whatever kind, whatever like object you are going to generate. So for that, for this file, we are going to generate the deployment object. So for that only we keep the kind as deployment. It can be service or anything. Okay. Now this is the metadata. This is the name of your deployment. Either you can keep any name. So let's say I'm going to name it like Spring Boot K8s deployment. So with this name, your deployment object will be created. These are the spec, selectors, labels, and this is your name of your deployment. Okay, so let me try to copy this. Just provide it here. See, this is the replica. Like how many replica of your deployment object or your pod you want to make up at one go. So I have mentioned three. So number of replicas that will be created for this deployment. Okay, this is the name of your deployment object. So just keep it same. Again, this is the container name for the deployment object. So you can keep it same. Now this is the image name. Okay, so in our case, what is the image name? The image that we have created is this. So copy this, come to the IntelliJ and just name it like this. And the version also you need to mention. And this is the image policy. If the image is not present locally, then it will go to the Docker hub and then fetch it from there. That's it. And the container port is 8080 on which our deployment object will be up. So this is how the deployment object YAML configuration is looking like. If you want to know more about it, you can go to the Kubernetes deployment page and then you look for it. Okay. So we are good now. Similarly, you can search for the Kubernetes service object or service YAML file and you will find it. Let me try to search it. Kubernetes service YAML, something like that you can search and go for this Kubernetes site, and in the down you can see they have provided the YAML configuration for the service as well. Okay, I already have kept it for us, so just come here. Let me try to copy this. Okay, now go to the IntelliJ. Let me try to create one service YAML file. So right click on it, service.yaml, just paste it here and see. Now the kind is service and API version is v1. This is the version of Kubernetes API. The, the previously I told that this is the version for the deployment. No, it is not. It is the version for the Kubernetes API. Okay, now come to the service YAML file, and this is the kind is service. Now this is the name of your service. So let's say service name should be Spring Boot, something like service. Okay, and this is the app. So we need what we have provided as an app here in the deployment.yml. We need to copy this and come here to the service and provide that. And here you can see the protocol we are using is TCP and the port number is 8080 and the target port is also 8080 and the type for the service is node port. There are a couple of other type for the service. I will describe you in the coming videos for that. Okay, so this is about the service. Now let me go to the command prompt. Okay, so here what I need to do, I need to create the deployment object and the service object. So we need to run some command to create the deployment object. So the command is uh, kubectl apply -f, and then we need to provide the file name. So let's say I'm going to create the deployment object. So for that we need to provide the file name that we have created. So go to the IntelliJ and deployment.yml file is the file for the deployment. So come here and just name it deployment.yml. Just hit enter. You can see your deployment object is created. Now you can run the command like kubectl get deployment and then okay, so command is wrong. It is kubectl get deployment. Okay, so you can see we have our deployment and we have three instances of it and all three are ready and running. So three instances of the deployment object is available and running. You can come here to the deployment YML file and you can see we have written the code like we should create the three replica of our deployment object. Okay, that is why the three replica is created and it is up and running. Now what you can do, you can go inside the node. You can look for the nodes. We have only one node as of now. Sorry, we need to look for the ports. Okay, so let me try to go there. And you can see we have three ports for the deployment object up and running. Now you can copy any of them and then you can look for the logs of the pod. So just run the command kubectl logs and then your pod name. You can see our application is up inside the pod and it is up on the port number 8080, right? So our deployment object is created successfully. Now we need to create the service object so that we can access our application which is running inside the Kubernetes cluster from outside of the world. Okay, so we need to run the command kubectl apply -f and then we need to look for the service.yml file. So you can see our service is created. Now let me try to run the command kubectl get service to see our service. So you can see this is the service that we have created, Spring Boot K8s service. Now let me try to verify it. So you can come here and come to the service.yml and you can see the name of your service is Spring Boot K8s service. Now you can come here and see, right? So our service and our deployment object is created successfully. Now let me try to get the URL of the service. So we need to run the command minikube, okay, service name and then --URL. So let me try to copy this minikube service name and then --URL. Just hit enter. It will give you the URL from where you can access your application which is running inside the Kubernetes cluster. Just copy this, come to the browser. Okay, let me try to go to the browser and then hit this endpoint. And our API was hello. So you can see this log is coming. So we are successfully deployed our application to the Kubernetes cluster and we are also able to hit the APIs inside our application. Okay, so this is how you can deploy your Spring Boot application using the YAML file to the Kubernetes cluster. Now let me try to go to the command prompt and here let me try to stop this now. Okay, and let me try to open the Minikube dashboard to show you what it is looking like and what all the features are there. So you need to run the command Minikube dashboard and just hit enter. So it will automatically open up a browser for you, the default browser, and this Kubernetes page is up and you can see your deployment object is Spring Boot K8s deployment and 3 instances of it is running, and these are some features of the Kubernetes. You can go through each of them, demonstrate deployment. Let me go to the deployment. This two deployment we have and one instance of the MySQL is running, which it was running for me earlier, and the deployment that we have created is this and 3 instances of it is running. Similarly, you can see for the pods, 3 pods are running, 1 pod for the MySQL. So this is how you can look for it. Now let me go to the workload and let me try to show you one cool feature of the Kubernetes. So you can see 3 pods are running, right? Now you can scale up your pods based upon the load that is coming to your browser. So just click on scale. Let me try to scale 2 and then just click on scale. So it will take few seconds and then it will make 5 pods of your application running. You can see, right? Similarly, if you want to close some port, you can come here and edit it. Okay, so just cancel this. Let me go down. So you can see 5 ports are running, right? Let me try to delete one. Now see what happens. So we have 4 ports running and one port is terminated. But once the one port is terminated, at place of that port, automatically Kubernetes make another port up. So you can see we have 5 port as of now for the application that we have deployed, right? So this is the cool feature of Kubernetes. It automatically load balance. It automatically create the replica of your running instance if it is going deleted or if it is going down. So this is about the Kubernetes or this is how you can deploy your Spring Boot application using YAML file on the Kubernetes. In the coming videos, I will try to show you how you can deploy your Spring Boot as well as the MySQL database or the PostgreSQL database, and you can connect both of them inside the Kubernetes cluster and run it. So this is about the video, guys. If you like the video, please hit the like button and please subscribe the channel for more such content. Thanks.